Hello, good morning. Welcome to the Dailies on Network Television, your winning station, where we keep you updated with all the stories that are dropping from the Nigerian newspaper. I am Sarah Elisha Basham, and I'll bring the program alongside Rachel Tansy. Good morning.
Morning, Sarah.
How was weekend?
It was fine. How was yours?
My weekend was fabulous. Thank you so much. And to our viewers at home, do remember you can join us live by Facebook and YouTube. Drop your comment, your views, and any other recommendation that you think is very relevant to the stories we will be looking on the paper this morning. And we shall love to start with the Vanguard newspaper.
The big story on the paper, top manufacturers list woes incur 266 billion naira losses in 1 year. The writer under the story saying plan for the price increase, our cost of sales jumped 64%. This is coming from BUA Foods. Economic grappling with cost push inflation. This is coming from Adonri. And then we have NB Dangote orders intensify backward integration. Details can be found on page 20. On Ondo Guba, protest as 4 APC aspirants call for primary cancellation. Okwama Ewu identifies 11 persons killed by military, 413 houses destroys, slams fresh 151 billion naira suit against the federal government, army and police, asks court to direct that federal government set up an independent inquiry, order police to take over investigation of invasion and killings, quash declaration of a PEGPO others as wanted persons. You can find details on page 5. DIA versus Olatunji, NPAN, NGE, NPO, BON, CSOs, others refer dispute to Ombudsman. You can find details on page 13. Still on the Vanguard newspaper, why Wike was allowed into National Caucus meeting. This is in PDP in a statement from the Senate Minority Leader. Nigeria set to receive fresh $2.2 billion World Bank loan coming from Finance Minister Edun. Intrigue as new Ganduje ward escos emerges, suspends national chairman. And the writer saying you are imposters, ward leaders tell anti-Ganduje's ward escos. And you can find details on page 8. We have sports on page 31. Super Eagles coach Kusau assures Nigerians will not wait in vain. Details can be found on page 31. Edo Guba, Okoko Edo, PDP stakeholders meet plot victory for Igadalo. You can find details on page 13. And we have picture stories first of Nigerian delegations visiting IMF, and then we can see them visiting the managing director of IMF in her office in Washington. We started seeing this meeting taking place since last week, and then we have that of the Access Holding annual general meeting. This took place last week in Lagos, and that's all the news on Vanguard newspaper.
On Daily Independent newspaper, Serap gives Wike and Governor 7 days to account for trillions of naira fake allocation. You can start reading the story on the front page and continue inside the paper. Stakeholders set agenda for new SEC board, with the writer following that story says says the commission must be proactive and deal with unclaimed dividends. Says commission must be proactive, deal with unclaimed dividend. More detail found in the paper. The big story for Daily Independent, banks recapitalization. Fear of injection of illicit funds into weak lenders heightened. You can read more of that story in the paper. Protests rock Ondo over APC Guba primary. Nigeria leads other developing economies in enhancing pharmaceutical industry, coming from the RMRDC. Marafa asks Matawali to withdraw remarks against Northern elders. You can find detail in the paper. And concerning the PDP NEC meeting, senators didn't collect $2 million from Wike, says Abba Moro. You can find more of that story on page 6. Lagos APC should give Guba ticket to Ambode in 2027, coming from stakeholders. And on ex-Nigerian Airways staff 20 years after, federal government yet to clear 34 billion naira severance package, with the rider ex-workers dying for lack of money to take care of health coming from the Union of the Aviation. You can do more detail to find more of that in the paper. Fleeing villagers storm Zamfara government house to seek protection from bandits, and I hope that the government of Zamfara will do something, because if we're seeing that villagers are beginning to seek for refuge in the government house, this really calls for doom, and I hope that something will be done so that these villagers can actually know that they are safe wherever they are residing. They do not have to run to the government house. You can find detail on page 29. We have a picture story on the front page of the paper. You can do well to get the paper and read more detail of any of the story that is of interest to you.
On Nature News, World Health Day, and we have battle between planet and plastic. You can start with the details on the front page and continue on page 5. FAO begins training of Acrisel officials on land preparation with Delfino plow. You can find details on page 5. Tinubu to launch 100 CNG buses, tricycle next month. Details can be found on page 6. Katsina farmers demand fertilizer subsidy to boost food supply. Details can be found on page 7. The big story on the paper: Nigeria recycles only 12% of plastic waste, generates 2.5 million tons annually. Recyclers attribute low rate to power failure. You can find details on page 3. Indorama reaffirms commitment to zero harm environment operational safety. NITDA partners US aid on digital agriculture and food security. We have a nature care column that says, can holistic remedy heal fatty liver naturally? You can find details on page 14. At the downside of the paper, for Formula One Chinese Grand Prix 2024, Max Verstappen wins with Lando Norris second. You can find details on page 20, and that's all the news on Nature News newspaper.
We're talking about nature, and it happens that today is the World Earth Day. I think we should talk a little about it. And we're seeing that the theme for this year is talking about planet versus plastic. And we know that I think from last year that has been the focus.
Yes.
Talking about how we can eradicate plastic, because we see that, I remember Lagos State precisely have even banned the use of styrofoam plastics for people, especially women that use it, or for caterers or food vendors that use these plastics. And we've seen that they have been encouragement where we use the paper bag, because they can easily decay and get back to the, rather than using plastic that hardly get to decay, causing havoc. And then we see that most time after using this plastic, they end up in our oceans, causing pollution. And as I'm talking, Rachel, I can actually picture most of our talking about oceans, our lakes, our streams, our rivers that have become the refuge dump, especially where you see plastic, and then they tend to block it. And we are seeing that with the issue of flood being one of the reasons why what we are concerned. I think last week we saw where the Ministry of Environment was sending memos to almost 31 governors, the fact that they are prone to have flooding. I know this is one of the reasons again we are having, because of the issue of plastic blocking places and all of that. So I'm hoping that beyond us having the this World Earth Day and then just talking about how we can eradicate it, I'm hoping to see proactive nature coming from the government, how we can eradicate plastic. We know that in other places we could see that they are recycling where you could put some of this bottle that can be recycled. But then I don't think we take that recycling thing serious. I think last year we saw about recycling, renewing, and the other R, I've forgotten what it stands for, but we're looking at all the R's that we can use to make sure that we'll be able to renew all of these things so they don't cause pollution. And then with the way we're seeing the weather is getting extremely hot, places like Plateau State that was not this hot, we saw how it was extremely hot this year and all of that. So this is sending a signal to us that we need to do something to preserve our environment, to preserve the earth, because we're seeing that we are losing quite a number of aquatic because of all of this plastic that end up causing havoc to them, hazard to the environment, to the water and all of that. So I'm hoping that beyond just us having a day where we have to celebrate this thing, Let it go beyond that day. Just the same way we are having where we see less planting of trees, and so we should not wait till when we have what it has to do with planting. Let's just make it a habit. Let talk take it down to the local government, state government, and just not just stop at the federal level. So I'm happy that the concern this year is planet versus plastic, and I hope that we'll do something to preserve our planet from all this pollution coming from plastics.
I was excited in the past years when I started seeing that our junkyards started collecting plastic waste also. That is, all these scrap collectors were including plastic waste. It wasn't just all about metal, because for long we know metal can be used, renewed, and
Mm.
all of that. And metal waste have not been an issue. But for years now, plastic waste has been an issue. It's global. It's a challenge everywhere. But I believe that we're a little bit backward because we lack recycling. And then I was excited to see that we are beginning to collect plastic to the extent that people do go and make money from the plastic waste they've been able to like store up at home. Now people no longer don't know what to do with plastic waste anymore. It's like there's where it can be collected. But then what broke my heart is that we are seeing that despite over 2.5 million tons generated annually of plastic waste, we just have 12% of it being recycled, and is as a result of power failure. So it means that we have the capacity to be able to, recycle these tons of plastic waste that we are being able to collect. And then here we have grid collapse one after the other, and is not as profitable as other businesses. It's still new. So definitely this is not a venture or a sector that people will go all out when it comes to finding electricity for it. They have to make use or make do of what is available, because I know I've seen documentaries of people who collect this plastic waste in a small way and recycle it. Is few. This is one individual in particular that I came across his interview, for example. Now imagine such a small business that does recycling and then having to face the challenge of electricity in Nigeria. So regardless of the capacity of the recycling, if there is no power for these kinds of business to thrive, then you see that regardless of us collecting it, it won't be recycled at the end of the day. It will still be a pile of waste in the end, rather than just spread around. So I just hope it shows us that whether we like it or not, electricity is contributing to a lot of the we don't know how it might be directly to climate change and pollution, but now we know that if we were to have steady power supply, we would be able to see a drastic reduction in plastic waste. So much is beginning to revolve around electricity, and I just hope that the government of the day is listening and saying, you know what, electricity should be top in our administration agenda, because now we are faced with plastic pollution, and then low electricity is the reason why it's not being recycled and all of that. So I just hope all hands on deck, and we should not individually gather these plastic bottles. Gather whatever plastic you're done with. Don't just dump it anyhow. Keep gathering it, keep gathering it. We will definitely have a way of going about it that will not pollute the environment. And you know what, use it to on fire. Now we all use charcoal, we all use firewood and all of that, rather than just throwing it at your backyard. Just find a purpose for it before we get to the level where there is so much recycling being done in the country.
You know, Rachel, it would have been easier to burn them if they were rubber, but you know, there's this very bad odor
We're
plastic
looking
to
at carbon
have.
emission again,
Yes,
so yeah.
another. So I mean,
Yeah.
however we see it, I just hope, just like you said, the government of the day will look into what we can do to recycle it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're getting there. We're seeing that we're about 12%. Little by little, we can get there. So we can do something to preserve our planet and
Yeah.
every other thing. Well, let's take a look at the first newspaper, where we have 10,000 dignitaries to attend Baba Abidoye 7-day funeral ceremony. It's more detail of that can be found in the paper. CBN working to stabilize the naira coming from Cardoso says there will be ups and downs. You can find more detail in the paper. Yahaya Bello not hiding in our house, says the ex-Kogi governor's family. We know that there have been a search warrant looking for him. You can find more detail in the paper. Also, Ondo APC primary, a charitable mockery of democracy coming from the PDP. Abuja Chinese supermarket under fire for denying Nigerians entry. You can find detail in the paper. Go on. Wife celebrate 55 wedding anniversary. We really have to celebrate with them. More detail in the paper. Now the big story here is on Ganduji's suspension saga. North Central APC joins Free, moves to reclaim chairmanship. As another APC ward fraction suspend him, Kano Anti-Graft Agency alleges the ex-governor used BDCs to change looted funds to dollars. It's another case of impersonation. Ganduji's word expo are imposters, says the state party chapter. You can find detail of that saga in the APC at the north. And concerning the UTME, JAM sanctioned officials for forcing candidates to remove hijab. Well, maybe they felt there was some hidden expo, as we call them, and all of that. And this has been a concern to me, Rachel. I mean, I don't mean to insult any religion, but we all have the right to exercise, what's the word now we love to use? I mean, to just be who we are. I had a case like this at a time in school where it was extremely cold. We know the way it just can be around December down to January, the weather was cold. And I was having a jacket on, and I was asked to remove the jacket and drop it outside. And I was like, I'm cold, you can check the jacket, there's nothing in it. Now, for a student at that time, I felt offended. Why? Because other people who had their hijab were not asked to remove the hijab. But I was asked to remove my jacket. And it looks as if, is it because I do not have any hijab? Was that why I had to remove my jacket? Now, we never can tell what was the case. We know that that is their attire. You can stop them. But let's just look at it from another point of view. What if the examiner or the officials at the JAM center felt that maybe these people are hiding? There are cases where we've seen people, there are people that do use that as a disguise to hide things. So I feel that there are other female officials.
Exactly.
So they could do the check-in, and if they feel you have nothing, then you're allowed to go in with your hijab after check-in. But not because you're wearing that and then you don't get to check there. Well, you remember, is it last year or last 2 years, we saw what happened at the Federal High Court, where one of the barrister decided to start dressing in his traditional attire. Said if this particular attire is allowed for court bar, then he's also allowed to dress in his traditional attire, and he would dress his kids as well in their own traditional way, because they're traditional worshippers to school, and let nobody send them out. So I feel Nigeria is a place where we have said that it's not a religious state, it's a secular state, so everybody's allowed to do what he should do. But then we should respect every religion regardless of what you stand for. So if here we're saying JAM is sanctioning them, possibly maybe the officials acted in a way that was not right. But if the officials are feeling that this JAM was a threat, or they have something, because we saw where JAM warned that parents should not be seen anywhere close to the vicinity. So I feel that we should have a way of balancing all of these things so that we don't, create crisis out of something that is not very serious eventually.
Sele, that's the word. Creating a balance. This is nothing but an outcome of people not doing their job 100%, Sele. We have different types of hijabs. For example, you make it out as a circular that certain outfit is not accepted in the examination hall because malpractice has taken different shapes and form, and people do walk in with materials that are not expected. Nobody is asking you because of your religion to come with your head open because it is part of your tradition, it's part of your religion. Nobody should take that away from you. However, it's not, there are different types of hijab. You put it on a cycle, you put it on jam rules and regulation, that when you're coming from
The UTM.
for the UTME, you put on a short hijab. It's still your tradition, it's still your outfit, it's still your religion. Nobody is taking it out. You put it out there and say any hijab that is above or below the shoulder length is not acceptable for UTME. We see different types of hijab, we see different types of headscarf, and you put it as a circular, as a law, as a rule, whatever the word is, and you put it out there that all those big running down hijab is not as it's not accepted. Of course, you can't tell them not to wear hijab and come, but there is an acceptable type of hijab for that 1 day examination. And the same way, if the weather is cold, you give a circular out for what the dress code should be for a certain period of time. You say, okay, this kind of big jackets are not accepted, but perhaps you make sure you dress with the turtleneck. This is the kind of work we're supposed to put in place, and you can, of course, and apart from that, it's expected that regardless of your dressing, you're expected to be checked. There should be female officials checking females, and then there should be male officials checking males. It's expected of all of that to be done. These are simple things, modalities that we put in place to make work easy, so that nobody will be embarrassed or violated in anywhere or so. It's simple. What type of hijab is accepted? There are short shoulder length hijab. For this exam is 1 day. It doesn't change anything. And say, okay, this bogus one, because in the past we've seen students walk into the hall with things that are not accepted. We are no longer accepting it. For UTME, this is the standard of hijab that is expected of you to wear, so that we will all be on playing ground, balance, and then we write our exams and then we move. It's that simple, Sele. But when we sit down and we neglect certain things, we will see things happening that is not even supposed to be happening. We will see headlines that are not supposed to be headlines. We will see problems that are not supposed to be problems, because we refuse to sit down and pay attention to details and bring out blueprints for things and how they should be done. And as far as I'm concerned, this is why we are still very underdeveloped in Nigeria, because nobody gives 100% to their job. We are still at the very surface in doing things. We allow things, whether we like it or not. We are a very religious country. So yes, you have to bring out modalities that will affect any religion to be on a balanced ground, on a playing ground, so that certain things shouldn't even be a problem in the first place. And I mean, we move. So I just hope that we have JAM officials out there listening, say, you know what, bring out circular for UTME. Say, this is the kind of hijab that is expected. This is the kind of outfit that is expected, regardless of the weather. Whatsoever is happening, bring it. You have 365 days to take this thing out. When people go to UTME centers, exactly, registration
you
for
know
center is out there. You know what is expected of you, how to dress. When the season change, you put it out, all of these things, and then before you know, we're just moving easy, and certain things will not even be problems in the first place. So I'm just looking forward to that professionalism in doing our jobs and carrying it out.
Very true, very true. Well, other stories still on the front page of the first newspaper here is on the issue of banditry, where we see fleeing villagers run into Zamfara government house for protection. More details found in the paper. We have NIPSS in use. I take that story. We have NIPS endorsed TJ News boss 43 other participants for the PSLC course 49. More detail found in the paper. Military launches manhunt for soldiers killers. Recount how terrorists killed 2 officials and 4 soldiers in Niger State. Downside of the paper, over 30 cows die after eating poisonous grain in Kwara. And that's really sad one for those who lost their cattle as a result of that. More detail found in the paper. We can see the picture story of Gowon and his wife during the celebration of their 55 years wedding anniversary at the St. Matthew and Decan Church, Maitama, Abuja on Sunday. And that's all on the first newspaper.
On New Telegraph, the big story, Naira abuse. Lawyers query EFCC's prosecutorial powers. You can find details on page 14 and 16. Nigeria secures fresh $2.25 billion loan from World Bank. In the first quarter of 2024, oil producing states earning hits 199.9 billion naira. You can find details on page 8. Drama as another Kano APC faction suspends Ganduje. FBN Holdings appoints Olabiosu acting CEO of First Bank. CBT Center jam sanctions officials for asking candidate to remove hijab. How Ezefe set up own funeral committee before his death. You can find details at page 28. And we have NPA and NGE. Others refer Olatunji military case to ombudsman. You can find details on page 2. Concerning banditry, fleeing Zamfara villagers seek refuge in government house. Rain wreaks havoc, destroys building, uproots trees, and damages cars. This happened in Ogun State. We killed several terrorists, lost 2 officers, 4 soldiers. This is a report from Army. And from the defense headquarters, we're not supposed to be on internal security operations. Says military only come out for IS if police can cope. Hope for PDP as parties NEC approves framework for reconciliation and rebuilding. This is ahead of 2027. You can find details on page 9, 10, and 11. At the downside of the paper, we have a study that says poor diet increases cancer risks. More details can be found on page 7. That's all the news on New Telegraph newspaper.
Rachel, the big story as well as the second big story, which is from the defense headquarters, caught my attention. Now, we know that for the past 2 weeks or so right now, we've seen EFCC out there. Last week was where we got a circular concerning the abuse of Naira. So ever since they started the issue of Bobrisky, talking about mutilation of the Naira, Prince Kubana, and then also we saw where they say a number of people are not allowed to abuse the Naira. And we've seen that even right now, even in wedding ceremony, people no longer spray the Naira notes as it used to. Even if you spray, there is a carton, there is a basket, there is a tray. Where you put the money, you do not throw it. Why? Because of course there was a slogan that said the fear of EFCC is the knowledge to a lot of people and all of that. But here we're seeing lawyers right now. Now you see where Rachel I keep saying we need to have clear laws where you know who is supposed to do what. Here right now we're seeing that the people that are supposed to prosecute corporates are CBN and the police. They are the only people, because spraying of the Naira note is not an economic crime.
Of course it's not.
But we're seeing EFCC going after people that they're abusing the Naira. Now, it's meant for us to have a law where you know who is supposed to do what. The same thing related to the defense headquarters. I'm happy that they have acknowledged the fact that it is not their job to take care of internal security, except when the thing gets out of hand. They will see the military coming in. I think this is coming in relation to what happened in Delta State, the Kwama incident, where we saw that you and I said the fact that we are supposed to be having the police settling this issue between these families. A lot of stories have come out that, I mean, this was talking about illegal oil things, and that was when it got out of hand. So we will get the truth eventually, I believe, regarding what was the real conflict that was happening, where we had our top military men dying as a result of some stupid behavior, negligence on the side. But I'm just hoping, let us have a law where we don't have people leaving their own jurisdiction and getting into another person's job. You're not done with yours. A lot of things are happening. We have loose end in your own side. I try to poke nose in another person's affair, where we have a number of people getting away with crime left, right, and center. So I am hoping, let us know, is it the EFCC that is supposed to come after people abusing the Naira, or is it the CBN and the police that are supposed to come after and say you're abusing the Naira? Because we know our Naira is one of our symbols that we respect so much, and so we're supposed to give it all respect that is expected. So let us have clear laws So we don't have, that was what happened during the INEC issue,
Yeah,
where
we
this
did
is
see
a
that.
pre-election or post-election, and we were confused that we even have to have a renew, or more like having a town hall meeting where we can start going through our electoral law and say, okay, this is the FCT part of the 25% of the election and all of that. So sometimes we make things that are not complicated so complicated. Why? Because people feel that we don't have a clear law stating what should be done, who is supposed to do this, and all of that at the end of the day. So I'm hoping we have something clear, so we don't have all of this making a big story when it's not a big deal.
When exactly, Sally. I think over the years we just have so much going on in Nigeria that nobody really cares to look into whose responsibility is it when it comes to violation of naira, that we just get carried away, and then until someone like comes up and bring it to the surface, and then we'll be like, yes, it's true, it's not supposed to be like that. The truth is, when you see how things go on in this country, there's a lot of misplacement of priority. And whether we like it or not, it makes it look like EFCC is jobless. When there's so many financial and economic crimes going on out there, it's definitely not your business who is spraying dollars and naira. It's definitely not your business who is stepping on the naira. Is definitely out of your job. In fact, it's not even part of your job. It's too little to be your problem. You are created for the big things. You know, go after people that are stealing our billions and our millions and all of that, and then let the police. This is a law. So who is the law enforcement agency? Is the police when it comes to civilians. So this is a civilian affair that has to do with violation of a law. So who is to enforce it? Is the police. The law was being brought forward by the Central Bank of Nigeria. They don't do arrest. CBN don't do arrest. They are not in the position to go and arrest anybody. They are not a security agency. They brought it out and say, okay, this is violation of our naira. Don't save the naira like this. Don't write on the naira. We will not accept it in the bag. Don't bring your naira stained with food. We will not accept it. Don't bring it torn. This is our own banking laws. It's been put there. Who is to make sure that this law is being enforced is the police. So automatically, it's only the police, when you look at it, that is saddled with the responsibility to arrest any civilian violating the law. Even the civilian can't go and do arrest. That's also not their jurisdiction. They've put out the law. Then the law enforcement officers, be it the police or whoever deals with civilians directly, are the ones to see it happening and then take action. But I believe when the police are not taking action, another might step in and say, well, we need to do something about it. At the same time, we see a lot of things happening in Nigeria that it looks like there's a silent elite war, that when a certain agency want to go after certain people or want to do a thing or pass a message, they know, AFCC know that for sure it's not their responsibility to arrest people. They know. You know it, Sele, when you're being employed in Echo Television, you know exactly what your job description is. So the moment you step out, you know you're stepping out of your job. So AFCC know that that's not their responsibility. But when people want to do certain things, like a silent elite war going on, and they want to send a message or go after certain people, they leave their job description and do certain things regardless. And then until someone comes out and talk, it will keep going on and going on. So I just hope I'm just happy we had this quick out there that, you know what, EFCC is not with the responsibility of arresting anybody violating the law. It's not just decision. Please, we just want to know what's the update concerning Yaya Bello and then the others that are having billions of our naira in their possession illegally.
I feel that, just like you said, it's just a message that the EFCC have sent. And you can see that everybody has redressed. Rachel, people are not misbehaving again. But just like we said, let the EFCC be on their lane and let us see the police being proactive and doing their job. The same way we are having road safety, we ask you for papers, VIU, we ask you for paper, tax force, we ask you for
police
paper,
will do the same
police will
thing.
ask for paper. At the point I wonder, don't you, I mean, there are crimes going on in our areas. People are stealing our goats left, right, and center. Cows are dying. Go after the people doing all of that and let the right people that are supposed to ask me for my papers ask me for that and all of that. Well, we hope to see more redress coming up. Well, before we continue with other paper analysis, quite a lot to chew. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue with the paper review. Please stay tuned with us.
Hello viewers, my name is Amaka Ocheke. We anchor the program, The Living Room, right here on Equa TV International.
You are welcome to watch us every Monday.
The Living Room is a very interesting family program where we discuss everything you want to know about family.
Talk about our children's mental health.
Keep watching. Our program is always here, 5:30 every Monday. We want you to ask questions, we want you to phone in and drop topics that you want us to talk about, even on our media handle on Facebook. We are there. So keep watching, keep listening. The Living Room.
Welcome back. You're still on to the Dailies, where we have been looking at a number of stories on the paper where we've seen Go celebrating his 55 wedding anniversary with his wife yesterday, and we really wish them all the best, that his wedding will be better, his marriage, and also he will be able to teach other the younger generation. Also, we're seeing the issue of abuse where lawyers are querying the EFCC for actually going out of their jurisdiction. And then also we've seen other stories on the paper which we'll love you to be part of. Drop your comment, your views, and then we'll see how we can join them together to make this country a better place. I still have Rachel Tati with me. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome, sir.
All right, and I'm Sela Elisha. Well, let's continue with the paper review. I will be taking the Guardian newspaper, starting with a big story, which is titled Used Vehicles Import Slump 32% as Dealers Trade Safety for Survivor Salvage Titles, where we have 80% of vehicles classified as accidented. And then we have clean used vehicles average cost $9,000. Salvage car average cost is $1,500 US. 70% plying Nigerian roads are used cars. Average repair cost of salvage car in Nigeria is about $300 versus $2,500 in the US. So more detail of the story for those who are into car dealers are inside the paper. Bandit kills 6 soldiers, 2 vigilantes in Niger, civilians in Zamfara and Sokoto. Detail found in the paper. World Bank pre-qualifies Nigeria for friendly $2.25 billion loan. More detail in the paper. Condemnation tray on Do APC Guba primary. Appeal Court entertained EFCC's alleged 80.2 billion naira fraud case against Bello today. You can look up that story on page 3. APC internal crisis lingers as another World ESCO issue. Ganduji fresh suspension. Media organization refer Olatunji's case to Omobosan. You can find more detail on page 4. Stakeholders absolve NUPRC of delaying $1.3 billion ExxonMobil asset deal. Detail found on page 4, and that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On this day newspaper, the big story: federal government to deploy launch first set of CNG vehicles in May to mark Tinubu's 1 year. Consider buses, tricycles target 1 million automobiles by 2027. First Bank Holding announces Olusegun Olebiosu, acting chief executive of the First Bank Nigerian Holding. And then we have, after initial commotion, Ayedatiwa will undo APC governorship primary election. You can find details on page 25. From Edun, Nigeria secures $2.25 billion World Bank credit. You can find details on page 5. And we have a picture story. Nigerian delegation visits IMF headquarters, where we can see Cardoso and then Wale Odun. And then that's all the news on this day newspaper.
On the leadership newspaper, starting with the 2024 budget, which is the big story, NUPRC nabbed out 5 orders earmarked 80.9 billion naira for welfare, where we can see the allocations from each of these places. You can take a closer look at that. Other stories on the paper: MPO, CSO and others take Olatunji's torture case to Ombudsman. You can find more inside the paper. Another APC word ESCO emerged, suspend Ganduchi. And on fact check, why was ADC to Yahya Bello detained? We have Onakoye plays chess for 90 hours in New York City, and we've seen that he has represented Nigeria well. His pictures are everywhere. We're celebrating him for breaking the Guinness Book of Records. So you can find more detail of the story in the paper. Stakeholders brace up for the CNG abduction as indigenous player expand investment. More detail in the paper. Coming from Ondo State, demand for cancellation of APC primary heightens. First Bank appoint Olusegun as the acting MD and CEO. Northern elders are not paper right, coming from Marafa. You can find detail on page 20. 25 passengers burned to death in Kogi auto crash. This really a sad one. You can find more detail of that story in the paper. Gunmen invade Abuja community and kidnap 5. I hope that they are not coming back again to a FCT. So let those involved, our law enforcement agents and everybody, swift into action and make sure that this does not get out of hand, and those who are kidnapped will be reunited with their families again. And that's all on the leadership newspaper.
On Blueprint newspaper, Kwara confiscates poisoned beef, shuts abattoir over death of 33 cows. Carry bags Energy Times GCEO of the Year award. Federal government won't pay incoming Super Eagles coach. You can find details inside the paper. The big story with 40-year term, 10-year moratorium. Federal government set to secure $2.25 billion World Bank loan at 1% interest. So we are looking at 50 years of paying back loan. The writer saying targets African Development Bank low interest funding. Britain's wood-funded electricity. Despite Naira stability, expect ups and downs, coming from CBN President Cardoso. Federal government to launch 2,700 CNG buses, tricycles before Tinubu's first anniversary. Statement from the presidency. Anxiety as protests mar Ondo APC Guba primaries. Ayedatiwa in early lead. OK Kick sees exercise monumental disaster. JAM sanctions officials over harassment of hijab-wearing candidate. First Bank appoints new MD and CEO. At the downside of the paper, UBA America strengthens commercial diplomacy at World Bank meeting. Details can be found on page 24. That's all the news on Blueprint newspaper.
On the Punch newspaper, Emiferes social programs bank withhold 530 billion naira CBN fund. Cardoso may order refund with the rider Access Bank, GTB, FCMB, 6 others keep unused fund, and we have SME seek fresh loan. NFIU Nasir to tackle anchor borrowers loan defaulters. CBN rules out intervention. More detail found in the paper. Federal government probes $500 million local content loan and project. Equity market suffers 1.6 trillion naira lost in 1 week, and then army vows revenge after terrorists kill 6 soldiers. Still coming from Ondo State, Ayeda Tiwa and others protests. Okay, I take that story. Aki Deruwa and others protest as Ayeda Tiwa wins the APC ticket. More detail found on page 9. Federal government rolls out 2,700 CNG buses, tricycles, May 18. More detail can be found on page 34. Kwara shot abattoir to probe poisonous meat allegation. And we have motorist residents stranded as flood overruns Lagos-Ogun Road. Outrage over discrimination against Nigerians at Abuja Chinese supermarket. More detail found on page 42, and that's all on the Punch newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, more confusion over Ganduje's suspension. Parallel ESCO's in-counter claims. You don't belong to APC, Ganduje Ward tells mastermind of fresh suspension. Details can be found on page 23. Fleeing villagers seek refuge from bandits in Zamfara government house. Alleged 80.2 billion naira fraud. EFCC Yahaya Bello continue battle in appeal court. RCCG pastor others abducted in Oyo regain freedom. NDLEA arrests 3 wanted drug kingpins, intercepts Oman-bound drug consignment. You can find details on page 26. 25 passengers burned to death in Kogi accident. Media Complaints Commission to adjudicate on military unlawful detention of First News editor Olatunji. I take that story again. Media Complaints Commission to adjudicate on military's unlawful detention of First News editor Olatunji. Details can be found on page 3. Federal government to roll out CNG vehicles before May 29. And there's a picture story, protest rocks on door over APC governorship primaries. And that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
On the Daily Sun newspaper, hands-off Kanu's case, IPOB tell Justice Yako. You can find detail on page 25. Ex-Governor Bello, EFCC waits on court. Judge to decide the former governor's proposed arraignment. Detail found on page 4. Account for trillions of fake allocation or face legal action, Syrup tells 36 governors and others. Ondo APC primary party leaders protest in Akure election may be declared inconclusive. You can find more on page 28. We generated over 22 billion naira in a day coming from Oni Custom. What detail of that found on page 20. NDLEA arrests 3 wanted kingpins, 51.90 kilograms of heroin. Detail found on page 5. Fresh twist as third APC word officials suspend Ganduji. The writer said they are not our members coming from the party. Reps Deputy Speaker Igbo Youth celebrate Kalu at 64. Detail found on page 26. And we have new Nigeria possible with the right leaders in government. Obi tell diaspora Nigerians, and we hope to see those leaders coming forward. Nigeria is set to receive $2.25 billion World Bank loan coming from the Minister of Finance. Edu says facility has 1% interest, 40-year tenure and 10 years memorandum. Detail found on page 2. And we have 180 bodies found in mass grave at hospital in Gaza. Detail found on page 27, and that's on the Daily Sun newspaper.
On the Daily Times newspaper, the big story, federal government will roll out 2,700 CNG buses, tricycles before May 29 to deliver 100 conversion workshops, 60 refueling sites spread across 18 states. Times Multimedia Limited sues Afrexim Bank for 800 million naira over alleged infringement of intellectual property. State Police, Shetima, Jonathan Abdulsalami, others for national dialogue. Tinubu to open African Counter-Terrorism Summit in Abuja. Details can be found on page 2. Bandits storm Zamfara market, kill 3, injure others. 51.90 kg heroin. NDLEA nets 3 wanted kingpins, intercepts Oman-bound drug consignment. Details can be found on page 2. Cardoso highlights achievement in FX stability as Nigeria secured $2.25 billion World Bank loan. Details can be found On page 4, we have a picture story. Victims of gunmen attack in Dabina and Zak communities in Hong local government area of Adamawa State during NEMA assessment visit. This took place on Sunday, and that's all the news on the Daily Times newspaper.
Yeah, insecurity taking different shapes, different forms in different states. We had the
Yes,
issue in Plateau State where we lost one of the students, a 200 level student of the Plateau State University. Very sad. I mean, where students are just minding their business and we
Yeah.
have government taking advantage of that. Same here we're seeing while people were going about their daily activities in Adama. Let's not talk about that happened in Benue State. And here we're seeing Zamfara residents are taking refuge in the government house.
Yeah.
And now it looks as if the government, their hands have been tied and they cannot do anything to protect the indigents of their state. We look forward to a better Nigeria, Richard.
We
We'll
do.
not get tired. Things might look like it is getting out of hand, but I do not believe that these people that are more stronger or they have more collaboration more than the Nigerian government. Nigerian government has everything that it takes.
Yeah.
So I just hope that let us see them rising up to their responsibility, protect life and property. That is your number one responsibility. Roads, infrastructures, and the rest of it will not count if you cannot protect the people who are to enjoy all of this. So we hope to see a better Nigeria eventually. Well, Richard, that's how far we can go on the program this morning. Thank you so
You're
much
welcome,
for doing this
Stella.
with me. And also thank you to our viewers, thank you to our followers. Please do remember that as we celebrate the World Earth Day today, do your best to take care of the plastic close to you. Put it in a proper place so we can recycle it and that we can have a safe planet that all of us will enjoy. Until we come your way tomorrow, to have a great day ahead.